this idea that sharks are perfect killing machines, it's obviously not true. Again, most of the time, even when they're going after their favorite prey, whether it's marine mammals or bat rays or whatever it is, most of the time they probably fail.
Welcome to another episode of Ocean Talks. If you want to hear about the ocean's top shark predator, then today's discussion will be pretty exciting. That's because I've got Dr. Yanis Papastamatiu with me. You may recognize Yanis from his recent appearance on National Geographic's Shark Beach with Anthony Mackie, which was an awesome episode. Welcome to the show, Yanis.
Thank you very much for having me.
I tell you, we talked about 3 years ago when I first met you. We just did just a Zoom call together, and I tell you what, I learned so much from you in just that 30 minutes talking that when I launched this series, I knew I had to talk to you because you know so much about sharks.
Well, it went kind of both ways because I'd seen your videos, which really had shown a visualization of predator-prey interactions with white sharks and bat rays, things like that, would normally you just would never see. So that's one of the reasons why I had I think also was aware of you was these videos with a completely new perspective of these animals in the world.
A lot of those videos, people have this concept that sharks are just out there always hungry to eat something, and they're just these wild predators. A lot of your research is about how the sharks interact with their environment. One of the things that really intrigues me about how my drone footage works with what I've learned from you is that relationship with the predator prey is much more complicated than what I ever imagined. Tell me a little bit about your research in that predator prey space.
Yeah, so some of these sort of overarching questions myself and my lab try to answer relate to what is the ecological role of sharks, and we know that a lot of them are upper level predators. Some of them are top level predators, meaning at the very top of the food chain, um, which means that they're probably important. But there's a lot of misconceptions that go into that as well. And I'll start off by pointing out, for example, that people all the time classify sharks as top apex predators, which means they're at the top of the food chain. That's actually not true. The vast majority of sharks are not at the top of the food chain. There are some species like white sharks, tiger sharks, maybe bull sharks, but most of them are going to be at upper levels, but not quite at the top. And even in the case of white sharks, we know in some places they're not even at the top of the food chain. If you go to South Africa, for example, where orcas will go after them, they're not at the top. So upper level is correct in some cases, maybe at the top, but again, that's a common misconception. So anyway, we try to figure out what is the ecological role of sharks, because again, I think there's a lot of misconceptions on that topic. We take ideas from terrestrial ecology. We know about, for example, the ecological roles of wolves or lions, all these big top predators in the terrestrial environment. And we know they're important, but we often assume that what we see in the terrestrial environment applies to the marine environment. And many cases, that's not true. They're not the same system. So there's a lot more complexity in some ways in the marine environment when we're trying to understand these predator-prey dynamics.
Before we get further into that predator prey dynamic, let's give some people some context as to how you got into this field. Because I ask every scientist what motivated you, what got you started into that specific field. Can you tell me, how this all started?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it started quite young. I came from, especially my father's side, is a long sort of number of generations of scientists, but not biologists, mostly in the physical sciences. But I always had kind of science in my blood. But I grew up spending my summers in Greece and snorkeling a lot, and kind of fell in love with the ocean from that perspective. And then there were a few things that got me really excited about sharks at a very young age. One was the National Geographic documentary, which was, I can't remember if it was 1981. It was one of the early ones with Valerie Taylor was in it, Eugenie Clark was in it. It was a really sort of famous one. Because remember, back then, there weren't that many shark documentaries around, right? It's not like it is now. And this one really stood out. And it really was a spectacular documentary. And I just remember watching that. I had the VHS and I watched it again and again and again and again. And that had a big influence on me. And something else that had a big influence on me was Jaws. I actually saw Jaws, and it had kind of the opposite effect in that I thought, found the shark fascinating. I thought the character of Hooper playing the biologist was, for the first time, kind of the nerdy biologist was the hero and the bravest guy there. I kind of like that.
And you did spend some time here in Southern California, right? You were at the Shark Lab for a while.
Yeah, so my first stop in the US was I did my master's degree at Cal State Long Beach in Chris Lowe's Shark Lab. I was actually, I think, his second student to ever graduate from the master's program. So I was one of the original students in the Shark Lab.
Were you guys tagging sharks back then? Did they have the tagging program back then?
No, they didn't. So this would
No.
have been, I was there from 2000 to 2003. And I was actually at the time one of the only students doing shark work. And I was working with leopard sharks. Chris had some projects. We were working with tiger sharks in Hawaii. But most of the work in California was actually on reef fish. And it's a good point that you bring up because we're also doing a lot of work on stingrays. So there's a lot more stingray research than shark research. And the Southern California ecosystem was very different than what it is now. So it was very rare to see a juvenile white shark, for example. We used to get a couple of boats that had caught them in the gill nets that would contact us every year, but that would be it. You would not be seeing all these, juveniles just off the beach. So there wasn't any tagging program because there weren't really any sharks there. So things have changed a lot in those sort of 20 years since I left.
That's very interesting because if you go to the beach here, at least this happens to me daily, people, especially locals, will say, "How's here? I've lived here 20 years. I never remember seeing this many sharks here along our beaches." How much of that do you think is, I mean, you were there on the front lines early on. How much of that do you think is access to technology like drones and tagging and things like that? And how much do you think is actually the environment has shifted enough? Or, I mean, do we have more sharks?
So I think it's certainly the advancements in technology make a difference, and drones are a big one. And obviously, everybody now carries a phone, which was not a case 20 years ago. So we're seeing things that we just wouldn't be aware of, and that can sometimes give you this, artificial idea there's a lot more animals there. But I do think in the case of the juvenile white sharks, it's also definitely a case that there are more animals there than there were 20 years ago. And that's kind of what we would hope to see because, there's been, I think the gill, I forget how long the gillnet ban has been in place, but I think white sharks have been protected in California since the mid-90s, I believe. So with all these protective measures in place, we're going on now almost 30 years, we would expect to be seeing some result of that if it had been successful. And so certainly I think some of it is that there are more white sharks, and that's a good sign, and that hopefully means that these conservation measures that have been in place for a while now are actually working.
And that's interesting because if, it looks like there's more sharks, but shark attacks haven't gone up.
Yeah, I mean, again, the shark attacks are very difficult to analyze statistically because there's so few, right? Obviously, anytime a shark bite happens, it gets on the news, and it will always give you this impression that they're frequent. Let's say 4 people were bitten in one day, which is what we had on 4th of July here. We had 3 people in Texas and 1 person in Florida. So that made the news, and it makes it sound like there's this sort of horde of ravenous sharks coming in there. But 4 is really a very small number when you're thinking how many people around the US are going into the water, especially on the 4th of July. We're talking hundreds of thousands, and how many sharks we have in the water and how few people are being bit. And we know now, especially for the juvenile white sharks, in California, now that we're starting to see the research being done, how often these sharks do come in proximity of humans, whether on paddle boards or surfboards or whatever it is, or swimmers, and do absolutely nothing. We actually have data now to show that. And obviously, these are smaller white sharks, so their diet is quite different from that of the adults. They're not at the point yet where they're consuming larger marine mammals. But nonetheless, it does show, I think, that we can coexist with these predators in our backyard. And again, just to give it some reference, I mean, if imagine we would do the same thing in the terrestrial environment. Imagine we were to have people sort of just hanging out 10 meters away from a grizzly bear, or go to Africa and hang out from a pride of 10 meters away from a pride of lions. I think it'd be a pretty different result.
Oh, totally, totally. And unfortunately, that reputation of sharks suffers because they do get sensationalized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do. And so people have this idea that they're the most aggressive, dangerous predator out there. And really, for their size, I would argue they're one of the least dangerous predators for us to interact with.
And the statistics definitely back that up.
Yeah,
I'll
for
give you a
sure.
good example. Yesterday, I was at the beach. There was a group of about 20 to 25 swimmers, about to go out, and I had been at the beach for, I want to say, a couple hours already. And I did film a couple very large. These were not juvenile
Mhm,
white
mhm.
sharks. I'm talking 15 confirmed 15 footers. So they
Yeah.
were pretty close. And the swimmers went out, we're going to go out. And like happens when I have access to people to let them know, I'll walk over there. So I walked over there and told them, hey, I know you guys are about to go have a good time, but I would feel bad if I didn't let you know that there's a couple adult great white sharks out there today. Just be aware. They still
And
all went out there.
yeah.
Um, just stay together. Don't leave a person behind. Be smart,
Yeah.
situational awareness. But again, nothing happened. The sharks, I never got the swimmers and the shark in the same frame because the shark never came
No.
close. But if that was a Hollywood movie, it would be the shark sniffs these people the second they put their toe in, they come in. That's just not the case. They're really relaxed.
No, and that's again the difference is when you have a shark bite, obviously that makes the news. But perhaps until recently, what doesn't make the news, because we're not normally aware of it, is how often a shark is within the vicinity and doesn't bite a human. Now, again, now
Mhm.
with this drone footage, we're starting to see more and more how often that does happen, but that's really only a recent occurrence. So all these interactions where nothing happens obviously don't get reported. We just get the interactions where something does happen. And look, common sense is, you know, always good to use with the ocean. Obviously, the chance of getting bitten by a white shark is not zero. If there's a big white shark swimming around, I'm probably not going to go for a swim. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
common sense. Not because I think I would get bit, but I don't want to run the risk in murky water of, you know, putting that up to chance. But again, that's just a common sense thing rather than I think there'd actually be a high chance of me getting bit.
So moving on to one of your most interesting topics that you have researched, it has to do with the social behavior of sharks. Was it in 2022 you published a paper about how great white sharks occasionally hunt in pairs? At least the research shows that there is some element of social behavior involved with them.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll define what I mean by social. So social, when we're talking about animals, we're talking about individual animals that like to spend time with other individuals for whatever the reason is. They like to hang out with other individuals, either of the same species or sometimes a different species. Obviously, we're not talking about predators trying to catch prey or anything like that. So that's our definition of social. But within that, you can have a wide range of different sort of types of sociality, from very complex cooperative hunting, like you might see with orcas, where individuals almost work as a team, to much simpler mechanisms of hunting as a group, which is simply, we're all hunting, and if you catch something, then I can see you caught it, and maybe I'll go over and get a piece of that pie as well, and vice versa. We're not collaborating, we're not cooperating, but just that fact means that it's beneficial for us to hang around with each other. So, you can see sociality from all the way from insects to birds to reptiles to fish to mammals. And the problem with sharks was it was just very difficult to detect it. When you're looking at something like marine mammals, for example, like dolphins or orcas, it's easy to see that there's some sociality there. You can see mothers with their calves, for example. If you're studying primates, you can see that they're doing things like grooming and again taking care of their offspring. So you can just visually, even without doing any science, see that sociality. But with sharks, it's not anything obvious. There's no obvious sort of interaction between them. And they're difficult to study in the wild. I mean, imagine you have a group of like gray sharks and you can only follow them, let's say, underwater for a very short period of time. They kind of all look the same, so it's hard to identify individuals. And so it's just something really tricky to sort of tease apart. And then I'd say in the last sort of decade, we've started using new technology, new analytical skills to start to sort of pull out this sociality in these sharks that we just didn't realize were there. So in the case of the white sharks, there's always been some evidence that they might have some sociality. And that was mostly from cage diving operations who noticed that, let's say, the same two sharks would turn up on the same day. And they noticed they routinely see these same individuals turning up together. Um, and then what we did was we put these tags on the white sharks that had cameras on them, but they also would detect other tag sharks. So we call it a business card tag. It's almost like, if we hang out with each other, I take your business card and I've got a record of who I've been hanging out with. And what we could see is that some of these white sharks would spend, several hours together at night in the same location. So what we think is happening here, and again, this is, definitely just an idea, we haven't confirmed it, is that these sharks like to stay within vicinity of each other. They're hunting big marine mammals and other large prey. And so if one of them catches something, the other one can sort of eavesdrop on that and then go and get a piece of that pie. And again, doesn't mean they're collaborating, doesn't mean one is trying to help the other. It simply means that it's more beneficial for us to hang out together than to be solitary. So we're just starting to get some pieces of that puzzle because there is some evidence that the sociality might go much further than we thought. So for example, there was two white sharks that were satellite tagged off of the east coast of the US that swam all the way up the coast of the US together. And so it's hard to know for sure what that means exactly, but at least opens up the door that possibly, these animals may form these long-term bonds that, may go on for weeks or more than that. And so there's still so much to learn there, both in identifying how social they are, and perhaps more importantly, really figuring out why. What is the benefit for these sharks being social? Because it's not obvious like it is with a lot of other animals.
So that's interesting because from the drone perspective, as you can see here, like you got four sharks hanging out together, right? These are all juveniles. I have seen, and it's anecdotal, but it is observational. I have seen the same two sharks constantly together on many occasions. I've also seen, and much like your paper says, I think you had said that you tagged 12 and 16 other individuals in the paper, if I remember right, and that there was like two of them that were less social, right? Something like that.
Yeah, two of them had a lot less detections of other tag sharks than the other three or four. I can't remember the numbers exactly. But again, that's something we also see in animals is this individual variation, right? You have some individuals maybe a lot more social than others.
Mhm.
And the problem is that just because you see a lot of sharks in one area doesn't mean they're being social. They might just be there because there's something good there, right? If you have prey and
That's a
everybody goes,
great point.
yeah, that doesn't mean you're being social. If I just put a lot of food on the table and everybody comes to eat, we may not know each other. We're just there because there's food. And so this is the tricky part. We have to separate this sort of random association because of, let's say, the environment from
Mhm.
true sociality, where you're actually choosing to be with each other. And I think, again, I wouldn't be surprised if you are seeing the same, pairs of sharks hanging out with each other, just based on the evidence we're starting to collect now.
So here's I think here's a good example of this. If you can see here, there's one, two,
Mhm.
three, four, five, six. There's another one
Yep.
here, seven. There in total, there's a dozen sharks in this frame,
Mhm.
and you see all the stingrays here.
Yeah, I see
They're
them.
there for stingrays, right? They,
Mhm.
they got to be gathering right here to eat these stingrays. And what happens is, look, they're all circling, which is there's another one coming in right here,
Mhm.
another one here. But this is low light footage. What's
Yeah.
interesting is the behavior once it turns low light and gets into dark, they start they just I call this a convergence point at this location. It's so interesting. What is that what's happening here, you think? Do you think they're there to eat?
I mean, it's hard to say. Obviously, those rays are a dietary item for these sharks, right? And so it would seem probably unlikely that they're all there with that much prey, and that's not, that's just coincidental. What you're seeing about the change in the time of day is definitely something we see with a lot of shark species. Is obviously their activity changes. And in white sharks, it can vary. So in a lot of places, let's say like South Africa, they tend to be most active during the dawn. And probably because that's, they're really going after marine mammals, and that's the
Mhm.
best time to have like a light advantage with prey on the surface.
And since we're speaking about social aspects, so you can see here one of them gets really spooked out, and
Mhm.
actually its fin comes out. There's some activity here that they all just go and scatter in different directions. But how close is too close? Like, look at these two sharks. They get really close to each other here.
That again is it's hard to define that because that's the other problem we have because the sort of sensory range of a white shark is going to be very different from our sensory range in the water. So what may seem quite far apart to us may not be that far apart to them. They may be able to detect each other's presence. But what you're seeing there is, some degree of information spreading through this group. When I say information, again, I don't mean that somebody is purposefully sending a signal.
Hmm.
But information could be that there's prey over here or there's a predator approaching. and then that information by the changing behavior of one shark can then spread to the others. But really, I mean, I think what you're seeing here, to put it into sort of layman's terms, is, there's a language going on that we can't fully decipher. So we don't really know what they're saying within this group. And again, I'm not saying that they're talking to each other, but in terms of there is some interactions going on, and we just don't know what it means.
What do you think is the deciding factor between a shark feeling comfortable enough to make a strike and just hanging out next to what would be its prey? Because I have hours of footage of these sharks just going by stingrays, like this clip right here. Like, it makes you wonder what's going through this shark's mind. Relatively speaking, I know they don't think like we do, but why does this shark just do this? Curiosity, and then just backs off.
No, it's a great question, and it's actually, we can look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, right? That a lot of these are behaviors are under evolutionary forces, and therefore we should expect animal behaviors to be optimized for hunting. And I think people have to realize that a failed foraging attempt can be very costly to these animals, right? A lot of energy can go into trying to catch your prey and not catching it. And so we would expect, again, animals to optimize their behavior to go after prey when they think they have a high chance of success. And really, what we see when we look at big predators, especially, is that their chance of success is low. Like, most big predators fail. If you look at the success rates of foraging, for example, of wolves, polar bears, it can generally be less than 20%. Now, white sharks, let's say ambushing seals in South Africa, that can get up to like a 40-45% success rate, which is still, means over half the time they fail, but that's a bit higher. When a white shark loses the sort of ability to ambush, once its prey becomes aware that it's there, then I think their success rate goes down a lot. This idea that sharks are perfect killing machines, it's obviously not true. Again, most of the time, even when they're going after their favorite prey, whether it's marine mammals or bat rays or whatever it is, most of the time they probably fail. And one other more obvious thing to consider, of course, is appetite. Are they hungry? And you mentioned that at the beginning about this idea that sharks are foraging all the time. And what we do have a pretty good idea about now is that sharks don't have to eat that often.
Here's something I filmed just last week. So there's actually a sea lion right here, and he has just made a successful predation on a bat ray. So that's why all the birds are here. The sea lion's coming up here. So the shark first came into here. That shark, do you think he senses this, right?
It's hard to say because I'm not seeing so far. I'm not, he hasn't oriented, or she hasn't oriented in that direction. So now she's starting to. But it's, generally, I'm not sure. What is the distance here? You'd say
This is not too far. This is about 25 yards.
Yeah, I mean, they should be able to detect over that. I mean, now she's starting to head in that direction.
Yeah.
So if you think that, the first sort of stimulus that's going to reach her is sound, and sound can move, can be detected hundreds of meters away. And that's probably the first sort of thing she detect. Now she's definitely sort of orienting in that direction. So she's sensing something at this point because she's now heading in that direction. She's changed her direction and she's heading towards the other predation. But now she's starting to turn back again.
So she got close. I would say that's 20 yards right there. And
Yeah.
she did this twice. So she went in and then turned around. She went in
And
and
then
turned
came back.
around. And I think it was this kelp kind of
Yeah,
deterred her, maybe.
we now know from this video, from camera tags, we know that white sharks can go into kelp forests, right? We used to assume they couldn't, and now we know they can.
I've noticed a lot of thresher sharks breaching near great white sharks.
Hmm.
And I've got footage of thresher sharks breaching and a great white shark nearby, and actually a paddleboarder next to it. It's buried in my archives. I'm going to show it eventually on my YouTube channel. But the cool thing about it is I believe that the sharks are eating these juvenile thresher sharks.
Yeah, certainly white sharks do eat other sharks. There's no doubt about that. And I think thresher sharks have been on the menu. Now, I don't know what size they would start doing that. Going to a shark diet. Generally, when they're small, they're eating mostly fish or rays. But is that one tagged?
This one is tagged, and that is a thresher shark tail in its mouth.
Oh,
so
wow.
you can see there's a
Yeah.
clip here where you can see it clearly, and I've taken a thresher shark and superimposed it over the top of it, and
Mhm.
that is not a ray. A ray has a very different. See the
Mhm.
tail. You can see the tail right
Right,
there,
right, right. Yeah,
and it's
that's amazing footage. But yeah, no, I mean they do eat sharks, so that's not all that surprising. It's just normally we find the remains in the shark's stomach. Rarely do we catch it on camera.
that's interesting because I notice thresher sharks breaching in the same place that these great white sharks are a lot. I mean, probably twice a week, and then that's not a stingray. That's a shark tail.
So then
Uh,
it also becomes like it's a bit like a chicken and the egg scenario, like
mhm.
why are they there? So presumably the threshers are there because I assume there's fish.
There's a ray. See, that's a
That's
ray
okay.
tail.
Right, right. So are the sharks hanging out in that spot because the threshers are there? Or are they there because they're after the same prey and that's just coincidental? It's there's so many interactions between these animals. They can be predator and prey, but they can be predator and prey and competitor. So they may have the same prey, and then you have one that, the white shark will also eat the thresher shark. So you have all these complex interactions, and many of them you're just not initially aware of, and these can lead to lots of consequences which are hard to predict. I've no doubt white sharks eat thresher sharks, but catching the whole thing on camera would be something.
Here's a shark, and I see this behavior, and I saw some this week as well, where a ball of kelp is floating, and a shark went right up to it, like it thought it was a whale carcass or something, because it just chomped on it. This is older footage, but again, notice that he's just biting at it.
Does it consume it or just takes a bite and then
He just bites it and just keeps going. But I see
well
this a lot.
well and we've seen this with, I've seen a tiger shark eat a beer bottle that was floating on the surface before.
Wow.
And so I think, these animals are curious and they go to investigate things. And if you're fish, you don't have hands to investigate things with, so you investigate it with your mouth. And to me, this also kind of ties in with, white shark bites on humans. There's obviously this big debate about whether they mistake us for marine mammals like seals and sea lions. And I've never been a big proponent of that idea because I don't think that, I think an adult white shark can tell the difference between a marine mammal and a human. We may be similar size, but we're very, very different in many ways. So I don't feel like they would make necessarily that mistake. And if you look at how a lot of humans are bitten, it's generally a very different sequence from how, let's say, a marine mammal is taken out. So to me, I feel a lot of these is, they investigate things on the surface and, obviously they're not going to lose any sleep about biting a human or getting it wrong. They don't want to invest a lot of energy into the investigation. And they go up and they give it a bite and see what it is. And I feel that that might explain at least some, not obviously all, but some of the negative interactions we may have with these sharks.
I'm definitely in that camp. The more I observe sharks, the more I realize they know what humans are. They definitely
Yeah,
know what humans
they
are.
they do. And again, if you look at even like how most surfers are bitten, it's a very different sequence from what you would see when you see predation on a seal or sea lion, which is a much more. I do believe that if they were to go after us the way they go after these marine mammals, you would have like almost 100% fatalities, which even with white sharks we don't.
So it's interesting. One question that people ask me a lot, and I never really have the right answer for it, but why do you think there's many more shark attacks per capita in Australia than in like California? Because we have very similar numbers and very similar interactions in both countries. What do you think is behind that from?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. So when we look at shark attack statistics, let's say the last few decades, I mean globally you'll see that shark bites go up, and that's generally just due to the fact that over the last few decades more people go in the water, right? There's an increase in the human population size, which means more people go in the water, which means you're more likely to have a shark and a human coming across each other. I think, in the case of Australia, from what I've read, there's also some evidence that it may also be due to this increases because there may be more sharks. And there may be some truth to that in the US as well, to a certain degree. Now, why theirs is so much different than what you see in California, I'm not sure. A lot of it can depend on how the animals are behaving. So, for example, if they're in a location where they may have, be more in a foraging mode, like a seal rookery or something like that, and you have people close to the water there, maybe that's a bit more risky versus a beach environment where the foraging mode of the shark may be different. But that's just speculation. So I really am not sure. I mean, it could be related to the size of the individuals, but again, as you're seeing now, although the majority of the white sharks you're seeing close to the beaches are the smaller ones, you're still getting now plenty of these bigger ones around that are certainly within the size range of having marine mammals in their diet. So I'm not really sure what is causing that difference between Australia and the US.
So I have one more piece of footage that I want to share with you, and it's tiger shark footage that I filmed in Fernando de Noronha,
Mhm.
Brazil. Have you been there?
I haven't. I know quite well of it. It's now become quite a hot spot for tiger shark turtle interactions. So I've never had the opportunity to go myself.
So I've been the last couple of years. I'm working with Bianca Rangel down there,
Yeah. Mhm.
and some footage I captured there at a beach that's now it's prohibited to swim there because I actually filmed tiger shark predation attempts multiple times within the swim zone at that beach.
Mhm.
And a year prior, there had been a pretty bad shark attack there with a tiger shark. But I noticed that the sharks would be going into the reef area and just slowly pushing the turtles into shallower and shallower and shallower water. And over the course of time, that's just kind of what I watched over those few days.
Mhm.
Eventually, and then sometimes I'd be sitting there wondering, why are these sharks not making the attack? They're right next to a turtle. And so the footage here that I'm going to show you is the actual attack. And I had no idea turtles were this fast. Wait, the, if you would have told me a turtle can outrun a tiger shark, I would have said you're crazy. Now check this out. The attack wasn't made until this thing is like in knee-deep water. And it just looks like they would slow the turtles down just enough in that shallow water to be able to do this.
Wow. That's
Look at this. It goes for a ride on top of the shark.
wow. That's amazing.
Look how fast this thing goes.
Yeah, yeah. No, they can move. Is it close to the beach now?
Now it's going away from the beach and toward the reef. And now this
Hmm.
is the very same reef this shark had to go over at high tide
Hmm.
to get to this area. Now it's lower tide, so the shark is pretty much stuck there. So it's low tide, and this turtle goes into that reef. And like an hour and a half earlier, that shark was easily going over that reef, but now it's too shallow to go on top.
Oh, so the turtle survives this one.
The turtle survives. There's
That
two
was a close
turtles,
call.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so again, this highlights a few things to me. First of all, is that you know, these animals are capable of learning and they can use some surprising tactics to get their prey. And another example is, for example, we know that in some cases, white sharks will approach their prey so that the sun is behind their prey, making it harder for them to see the sharks. So that's quite a complex foraging tactic to use. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to hear these sharks know that, again, it comes down to what is my chance of success? Because what you saw there cost that tiger shark. I mean, that was moving pretty fast, burning a lot of energy. Not only that, it's probably going to have to spend a little while recovering because that's almost like you sprinting, which is anaerobic, right? After you go for a
Mhm.
sprint, it's not just a case of you have to replenish your energy. You have to get rid of all the lactic acid. And that means that it's hard for you to go for another sprint right away. So that shark failed in that instance, and that's going to cost it a little bit. So they need to, you know, judge the sort of cost benefits. In this case, it looks like they aren't willing to go for, at least in this case, the attempted attack until they feel that their chances are much higher. And so they may well have figured out this tactic of getting them shallower, because then it's harder for the turtles to evade them. And that turtle was lucky. I thought that tiger had gone, once he got its fin, I thought that it was over. Um, but I wouldn't be
He did
surprised.
do that two times. He went for it twice after
Yeah.
more different turtles, and one of
Oh,
the turtles he actually got a hold of it. He got a hold of it, and he's holding the turtle, and the turtle just like plays dead, and the shark relaxes, and the turtle takes off.
Yeah, well, that in itself is a pretty good tactic. You know, we see turtles a lot. What they do obviously is they'll turn their shell towards a shark, so the shark
Hmm.
has is facing the hard part, and that's why perhaps that's one thing that going to shallow water prevents, because they can't do that. That going on their side to present the shell wouldn't work if it's very shallow.
Hmm.
So that they may actually sort of remove one of the turtle's defensive tactics by going in really shallow like that. Um, and unfortunately for the shark, fortunate for the turtle, it still didn't work in this instance.
The thing that drove me nuts about this thing is you see the sharks get like really, really close to it without an attempt. But then there's an attempt when the shark is here and he can ramp up some speed. It's just so weird to look at because you'd think, oh, he could just grab it right now, but he doesn't. And then it's so interesting.
Yeah, and there's again, it goes back to how little we understand about what it takes out of predators and prey in these situations. So one of the things I could see there, for example, is that they were turning tightly, and we know that turning, if you're going high speed, turning costs a lot of energy. Which is why if you see like a cheetah chasing a gazelle, the gazelles will often start doing the rapid change of direction because they can't outrun the cheetah by speed alone, but the cheetah cannot keep up with
Hmm.
those turns. So if a shark is going full speed and trying to turn, that's costing it a lot of energy. But again, it highlights how, you know, you've seen all these very close interactions, but they've all been failures. Again, showing how often these big predators fail. It really is not easy to make a living when you're a large predator.
I mean, he's got this turtle
Yeah,
right
I mean, that
here.
looks
Look
like
at the turtle.
he does. Yeah, I mean, and you know, tiger shark teeth is obviously very well designed for soaring hard objects. So I thought this turtle was done here, but apparently not.
Yeah, this is the second attempt after the first failed one. And the turtle just turns and I think I'm watching this live and I was like, he's got it. Oh no. And then
Oh,
it
ouch.
just wiggles out. It just wiggles out. Lucky
And
turtle.
still has all its fins or
Hmm.
flippers. Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah.
The other possibility, this is a young tiger probably
Sure.
still learning, huh?
Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, you know, learning is an important part of their you know, their tactics, and they're going to get much more efficient as they get older, as long as they get enough food to survive. And in fact, in some cases, we know that that may, you know, separate the survivors from the ones that don't make it is how well can you hunt. So if you look at like baby scalloped hammerhead sharks, a very large proportion of them born die. So like sometimes 80% of them can die. And
Wow.
the ones that make it to the first year and get large enough are just those that figured out how to hunt quickly enough. The others, you know, probably didn't make it.
Imagine millions of years of that to get to where we are now.
Yeah. I mean, it works. Obviously, they're here, and, you know, and it works. It's just, you know, it's nature is a tough, you know, it's a beautiful place, but it's pretty tough for the animals that live in these environments to survive, whether you're predator and prey. You know, because again, if you keep on failing, you're going to starve, and once you start losing body conditioning, it gets worse and worse because your ability to hunt deteriorates. So. And you do see that. I mean, I've seen sharks before that were clearly starving to death. I mean, I've seen a shark that
Wow.
looked like it was so emaciated that it was going to die in the next few days.
Wow.
So you don't normally see that as much with sharks. And again, mostly because, you know, if they die, you never see the bodies again. But you can also see it with lions and bears. You see animals that look emaciated and you know, they're getting desperate. But unfortunately, that's the reality of being a predator.
Well, Giannis, yeah, I've had a good time talking sharks with you. I think the shark nerds are going to like this.
No, it's been my pleasure. So thanks for having me and for the good questions.
I'm going to make that Dropbox folder and
Yeah.
put some of this footage in there for you. You're welcome to, look at it
Yeah,
and
so
use
no,
it
I'd
for
love
whatever
to.
you need.
That stuff, yeah, is amazing, and I'll put some stuff up there for you as well.
Perfect. Well, that's been another episode of Ocean Talks. If you have any questions for Giannis, write them in the comments below. I'm going to link to your page and your research in the video description so that people can learn more about you. Don't forget to tune in to Nat Geo's Shark Beach with Anthony Mackie. It's featuring Giannis and his work there. Hope to have you on again in the future.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure anytime.
All right. Thanks again, Giannis.
No, my pleasure. Thanks a lot, Carl.